Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word Live and to some race reaction for the 70th Anniversary Grand Prix. Not a bad afternoon of racing, I must say. I think I wrote down on my notes, fantastically fascinating. Now, you know I love a bit of alliteration. That's how I found that race. Really enjoyed that one. I know I like my strategy anyway in Formula 1, but we got all of that and some good racing as well. And I'd go as far as to say a surprise winner today. I will say a surprise winner. Let's have a look at that race result. Max Verstappen. Yes, if you're tuning in having not watched the race, go back and watch it. It is well worth a watch. Probably start to finish, actually, which is great. Max Verstappen taking the win for Red Bull. Lewis Hamilton in second for Mercedes. 11 seconds behind with Valtteri Bottas in third. Not a very happy Finn. If we go off his post-race interviews, he didn't sound thrilled, which I can kind of understand. Charles Leclerc in fourth place for Ferrari. That boy is driving brilliantly this year, I must say, in that car. And he said it was like a win for him. Fourth place is like a win for Ferrari this year. Kind of sums it up, really, doesn't it? Alexander Albon, I actually think did very well to come back to fifth place with Lance Stroll in sixth. Nico Hülkenberg, seventh place. A little bit of confusion on social media as to why Racing Point decided to make a third, I think it was, pit stop for him and put him on the red mark soft tyre. Apparently he had vibrations, so they pitted him as a precaution. So a few people saying that it's because Daddy Stroll didn't want his son to be humiliated, but that is absolute nonsense. Esteban Ocon in eighth place. He was happy with that. Lando Norris ninth. I think a very quiet couple of weekends for McLaren, really. Maybe not a track that suits them. Daniel Kvyat in 10th place, beating Pierre Gasly. He's got to be happy with that. Into 11th. Sebastian Vettel, though, only 12th. Carlos Sainz in 13th. And then it's Daniel Ricciardo 14th. Kimi Raikkonen in 15th place. Miserable weekend for Alfa Romeo. 16th for Romain Grosjean. 17th for Antonio Giovinazzi. 18th for George Russell. 19th for Nicholas Latifi. And 20th for Kevin Magnussen. But what a race. Did you enjoy that, chat? I thought that was a good one. I really, really enjoyed that Grand Prix. I know last weekend a few people were disappointed until those final few laps where it all kind of exploded, quite literally. But I thought that was a thoroughly enjoyable 70th Anniversary Grand Prix. I like that name. I think it's quite cool, but I'm glad they're not going to be naming any more like that because that is absolutely ridiculous. But where should we start today? I mean, it's got to be Max Verstappen, hasn't it? Fantastic performance. I came into this weekend and no point did I ever think, unless there was some kind of reliability issue or the Mercedes boys got together, that Max Verstappen was going to go out and win that race. Not for 1 second did I believe that. In fact, I said in yesterday's race look ahead quite clearly that I thought it was all going to be Mercedes. They'll disappear. They'll battle it out. It'll come down to strategy. But he did a fantastic job. And tyre management. I know we got a little bit bored about talking about tyre management last week, and we don't really want to be talking about tyres constantly in Formula One, but bringing those softer tyres seemed a little bit crazy, but it seems to have worked very nicely indeed. And what we've ended up with is Max Verstappen looking after those tyres, getting his car set up perfectly to just run. I did write down the pit stops, so he actually ran considerably further on that first set of tyres than Mercedes. And obviously Mercedes were on the medium tyres. They were all falling apart. They were blistering really badly. He had the hards on. They were, I think Karun Chandok said, mint condition, which is quite impressive given how hard he seemed to be pushing them, although it turned out not that hard. And he just managed to keep churning those laps in, got ahead of the Mercs through the pit stops, drove a brilliantly controlled race, pitted later on to cover off as well what Mercedes did, and I think that was perfect. Very short middle stint on the mediums, which were not doing very well for a lot of cars out there, so perfect afternoon for Red Bull in so many ways. Certainly with Alex Albon as well, making his way back through the field, but what a performance from Max. Second in the Drivers' Championship. I went to do that table after the race, and my initial thought was that there was a mistake when I was trying to work it out. How is Max suddenly second? It was between Mercedes. They were going to run away with this World Championship. And Max Verstappen has, I'm not going to say brought himself into play. I think that might be a little bit of a stretch because not a lot of people thought that Bottas would be able to turn around a 30-point gap in the same car as Hamilton. So I don't think a lot of people are going to maybe expect to see Max Verstappen be able to do it in a Red Bull. But next weekend, Barcelona, expected to be extremely hot again. Maybe not as hot as this weekend, but I know Tom, who lives out in Spain, has said that it gets very, very hot this time of year. So it could be another good weekend on a track that is absolute dominance, or a track that Mercedes tend to absolutely dominate at. So very excited to see what Red Bull can do next weekend. And a bit of a chink in Mercedes' armour. It's been one of those starts of the season where we've all been talking about how they're going to absolutely cruise this, and there you go. They just there is an Achilles heel. So I think Crofty said it in commentary. We need some under-track heating to try and cause some problems here for Mercedes, but obviously don't want artificial things like that. Absolutely brilliant. So happy for Red Bull, and kind of happy from a neutral perspective as well, because it just shows that there is the possibility that just every now and again, if Red Bull get it right, they can beat Mercedes. And if Ferrari can get it right later in the season, maybe a bit of a stretch given they're so far off. You just never know. But I think aside from Max himself and how well he drove and the perfect strategy, once again, from Red Bull last weekend, a few question marks, but we've seen this season they've nailed it at times. So, getting that right again was great. But the biggest talking point for me was Mercedes and how much they tore to pieces their tyres. I mean, they put the hards on around lap 14 on Bottas and lap 15 for Hamilton, somewhere around there, because obviously they're a bit awkward working that out because, of course, as you come in the pit lane, the line comes up before your pit stop, so it's actually the following lap, but you know what I mean. Pitted relatively early to get rid of those mediums, and then I think they were only about 10 laps into each stint before you just saw these blisters starting to appear and these tyres going off, and you're thinking, well, that's the hardest compound. And there was a genuine point where I was sat watching this thinking, do you know what? I think Mercedes might have to be looking at three stops or maybe even 4 stops. I mean, I was like, I think I'd have enough tyres to get to the end. It was one of those situations where everything was just going wrong for them. And I thought, Christ, obviously, not having enough tyres is ridiculous, and 4 or 5 stops is crazy. But when you're watching the race, you get that excitement, don't you? You think, oh my God, you get a little bit tense for them. Are they going to get these cars to the end? But absolutely awful on their tyres. And obviously, that's a heat thing. We know Mercedes struggle with the heat. So, yeah, I think I'm glad they bought those softer options this weekend in terms of tyres, but I can't see Pirelli be willing to do that again. If you think about it, do they really want to be talking about these tyres again falling off cliffs and blistering really badly? We love it as fans because it adds that variety. It gives us that little bit of excitement and some, it brings that question mark in, because if it's not hot, Mercedes disappear with that race and win it comfortably. So you kind of want that variety as a fan, don't you? So I don't think Pirelli will go with the softer options again later in the season when they start doing their nominations, if you like, for the latter stages. Although, to be fair, I think you could probably take any tyre to the Nürburgring in October and Imola in November and be absolutely fine to run them probably start to finish with no problems. Obviously, you've got your mandatory pit stop, but yeah, it's all about tyres today. Valtteri Bottas, not happy, as I said at the top of the stream, and I kind of get why. So Mercedes have run Lewis Hamilton longer on that second stint. I mean, I cannot believe he got those tyres as far as he did, but apparently the blistering wasn't a structural issue. You can see on the picture there actually how bad that rear tyre was. That's not a structural. Yeah, it's not going to fall apart. It's just a blistering, so it's going to feel absolutely horrific to drive. But he actually still has some pretty good pace, and I know Max was looking after those tyres quite a bit. He wasn't really pushing as hard as he could have done, because as soon as they said to him, go, he went. So the pace was good from Hamilton, but I think that was more because Verstappen was not really pushing quite so hard. But he was as quick, if not quicker, than Bottas on a set of tyres that were absolutely screwed. So they ran him super long. And there was this thought in commentary, I had the thought as well that he was going to go and try and go to the end. I didn't believe he could for a second. I'm just sat there going, well, they'll just blow up. There's no way. There's no way they're going to the end. And I just thought for a second, when we got sort of 10 laps to go, I just thought, they're going to try it. They're going to try it, aren't they? But they pitted, put on the hard tyres, and he was so quick towards the end. But that's massively compromised Valtteri Bottas in that race, because he's pitted much earlier. His tyres are finished by the time Hamilton catches him. He cruises past him in DRS. And it's all right, Mercedes coming over the team radio and saying, you're free to fight, just leave each other space. I mean, we want to hear that, don't we? Of course we do. But I don't. Valtteri Bottas is fighting for a world championship, or trying to fight for a world championship with Lewis Hamilton. It will probably still come down to those two at the end. If it comes down to a fight, it might be Hamilton disappears with it. We don't know. Obviously, if I knew, then I'd be putting money on things right now and I'd be loaded. But anyway, yeah, he's fighting for a world championship, and that really screwed him over. And I think, I don't want to be Mr. Skeptical, Mr. Let's all have a gossip, and what are Mercedes trying to do, and are they deliberately sabotaging Bottas' season? I don't think it's that. I think genuinely Red Bull just put the cat amongst the pigeons. They really winded Mercedes today, and they had to react, and so they sort of had to split their strategy to have a chance of winning. Now, Max, I didn't believe he was ever going to be caught once Hamilton made that second pit stop, but there was always, if they were going to win, that was their best opportunity. Now, they could have favoured Bottas, of course they could, but they're reacting to the situation. So I don't think it's sabotage. I know a lot of people will accuse them of that. I don't think it is. I think it is more about the team trying to do what they can to win. And maybe had Bottas been able to run longer on his tyres, it would have been a different story. But it's really hurt him in the championship. And he's dropped to third. He's 34 points behind Lewis Hamilton now. I've been saying all weekend, this is a big weekend for Bottas, and he needs to start his fight back now. He started it in qualifying really well. That lap, I know there was nothing between them, but somebody said in the comment section yesterday, I didn't respond. I meant to respond, so apologies if that was you. But they said, how Bottas beat Hamilton to pole, what was so great about that lap? You've answered it in the first 4 words there. Bottas beats Hamilton to pole. That was, or first 5 words. That is why that lap was so good. Everything on the line. He had to beat Hamilton. He had to beat turn 1 first. He did everything he had to today, Valtteri Bottas, but he still somehow ends up behind Lewis Hamilton. So I'm not going to call it championship over, but I'm also not going to kid myself and say we're going to get this epic title fight. But Red Bull have certainly sort of put the cat amongst the pigeons. But I'm very excited going forward because there is this question mark now over whether Mercedes can continue with these tyres in this heat. Are they going to have more problems? Is it going to bring Red Bull back into play? But I think all in all, a fantastic Grand Prix. And actually, you know, yeah, he finished third, and yeah, Hamilton had his problem with his tyres as well. But I think the top three all drove very well today, all things considered. The things they had to manage. But Verstappen, I've got to say, team radio from that boy this season has been absolutely brilliant. I wrote it down. He was told to sort of back off and take it easy. You're getting too close to the cars. And he said, it's a mate, as he does. This is my only chance to be close to a Mercedes. I'm not sitting here like a grandma. I mean, it's fantastic. And then he reminds them at the end to hydrate, have you sanitised your hands. He's been gold on team radio this season. I know that's not the most important thing, but if we have a team radio championship, he might be winning it. That's an idea for WTF1, if anyone wants to suggest it. A team radio championship, but superb, absolutely brilliant from Verstappen. I think rightly wins driver of the day. We'll talk about that later, of course. We often do towards the end of these streams, but brilliant drive. And yeah, I just think a really, really enjoyable race. Last weekend was disappointing. I know the last few laps were epic, but it was a disappointing Grand Prix compared to what we're used to seeing around Silverstone. Couple of super chats coming in. We'll do that. That's your top three. Adam Winch, thank you very much for your contribution, mate. Says if Max finished in Austria and won last week, he would be leading the championship. That's an excellent point. Of course, could have won last week without that pit stop from Red Bull, but I still maintain, as I said in the reaction last week, Red Bull did the right thing at that point. It was the right call at that point of the race. So I think that was hindsight is 2020. Looking back, you go, well, they shouldn't have pitted him. He wins the race, but they weren't sure on the tyres. They wanted to go fastest up. It was a right call at the time. Like I say, looking back, maybe not, but yeah. And then Austria, third place was he running when he retired with that mechanical issue? So absolutely, he would have been right in the fight, and we'd be talking about a very different championship. Of course, still a fair way to go. What's that? 5 races down, at least another 8. Is that right? We've got 13 confirmed so far, and then you've got possibly a couple in Bahrain and one at Abu Dhabi, so there's some more races there. So still a way to go yet, but Lewis Hamilton looking very good for that title. And Zach B, thank you for your contribution as well, mate. He says, is Stuart not here? Do me a favour, message him and let him know that I said hi and that I miss him. I'll tell him you love him as well. Yeah, I'm on my own today. So yeah, it's a good old classic Sean waffle. I know how much you all absolutely adore them. But I will come to you guys in chat throughout, of course. But yeah, very, very happy with this race. And I think, it's a cheesy line. I'm going to give it a cheesy line. I like one every now and again. I think for a 70th anniversary Grand Prix, it did Formula One fairly proud today, but it was all about the tyres, obviously, wasn't it? So it would have been nice if it was a straight fight, no tyre issues, Red Bull right back in the battle, but it's a good result for Max Verstappen. It's an excellent result for Max Verstappen. I'm going to continue to say that. Behind the top 3, though, wow. Charles Leclerc, that guy is not, he just flies under the radar every weekend at the minute. And I think he's getting a lot of credit, but I think he deserves a hell of a lot more, because I know there'll be some of you in chat and there'll be some in the comments after this that will say, well, a driver can't outdrive the car. If the car's got the raw pace, that's all they can drive to. But it does feel like if he's not out driving that car, he's extracting every single bit of pace from it. Driving brilliantly, quite frankly, today. And like a victory. He said to Sky afterwards, it was like a win. And I can't quite get my head around that for Ferrari. That's how far they've kind of fallen off the pace. But he's 4th in the championship, 45 points from the first 5 races. Doesn't sound particularly good. But when you consider where they've been this season, that's a pretty decent haul. And Ferrari are in that fight for 3rd place in the Constructors, which, again, at the start of the season, you'd be saying, well, they want to be doing more than fighting for 3rd. But I think Leclerc can be very, very proud with his performance. His teammate, however, I mean, what? He says in his interview afterwards that he's not sure. He feels like he's missing something on the car, and there's people going, oh, he's not got the right car. Maybe they're favouring Leclerc. My response to that is, I don't necessarily totally believe that there's anything fishy going on there, or they're sabotaging Seb, because as me and Stuart discussed last week, Ferrari are not in a great position and they need both of their cars bringing home points. But what I possibly think is happening is because Vettel is leaving at the end of the year, Ferrari are backing Leclerc. So everything they do back at the factory and across a race weekend is going to be geared towards getting that car set up for Charles Leclerc because he's their driver for the future, whereas Sebastian Vettel is leaving. So they don't need to put quite as much focus. And maybe that car, a little bit like Verstappen and Gasly last year and maybe Albon as well, that the team is very much focused around one driver now. So that car is maybe going to lean towards the way they drive rather than Seb. But really disappointing race from him again. Spinning at turn one, I mean, under his own steam. Gets his wheel up on the curb, lights up the rears, round he go. I mean, very lucky not to wipe out. I think it was Carlos Sainz on his outside, and then there was a Renault, possibly Ocon, who was coming up the inside. So very lucky that wasn't a big accident, but really disappointing weekend for Seb. But Charles Leclerc, 4th place, stunning performance once again. I'm really impressed with him this year, and he's kind of... I mean, what do you think in chat? And let me know in the comments afterwards. I kind of feel like he's driving better than he was last year. Or at least I'm more impressed with his performances this year, because last year we had a big question mark over the legality of that Ferrari, but it was the fastest in a straight line. He was getting pole positions and he won some races. In fact, he got more poles than anybody else. But this season, that car is not anywhere near where it was or where we'd expected it to be. And I think he's actually driving it exceptionally well and possibly better than he was last year, and showing us that there is that raw speed there that some people have doubted, believe it or not. He's a real talent for the future, so massive kudos for him. So I'm going to read a couple of your comments on this one because I did ask you, so it'd be wrong not to then come to you and have a word. A few of you saying sabotage, very good. He might still take a sabbatical if he's been sabotaged. We love a pun, don't we? Rayan says he hates Charles. Okay. Leclerc has been superb, says Jack. Granny Annie, he's doing well with that rubbish car. Leclerc has been doing fantastically this year. That's from Enforcer Nebula. F1 Adam 8, what did you think of Seb's team radio? Yeah, what did he say? I think I wrote that one down as well. You see, I've been good today, Adam. I've been making notes and everything. He was talking about strategy, wasn't he, and how they got it wrong with where he'd come out. And he actually, the line I wrote down was the last line where he says, you know you've messed up. You know that you've messed up. That is a guy who has had enough. And in some ways, I kind of wish I had someone to properly discuss this with on a stream, and maybe it's a topic for another day. Maybe we'll chat on social media at some point. But I do wonder if I look at... It's Alain Prost, that's what I'm thinking. He was very critical of Ferrari. We're going back a very long way, by the way. But Alain Prost was very critical of Ferrari, and he got sacked from the team. I don't think Seb's trying to get sacked, but I do wonder how long Ferrari will allow him to openly criticise them before they do what Ferrari used to do. They're quite a different team, I feel, behind the scenes now in some ways. They're a bit more relaxed with that sort of thing. So I do wonder, but I just think something's not right. He's not happy, and I think he will see out the season. But at the same time, if I read some breaking news tomorrow that he's off and they're going to put somebody else in that car for the rest of the season, he's had enough, I wouldn't be surprised either, to be perfectly honest. But yes, shocking. Samira saying I forgot to deduct 15 points for Racing Point. I think that's correct. I believe that's correct. They've gained those points back today, so they've jumped back up. They've jumped up into 3rd place. I had definitely deducted them when I did the stream on Friday, and that's the updated table based on that. So I'll double check that. So if you are watching later, if that is wrong, apologies, but I thought that was right. Possibly not. I'll have a look in a minute. Wait for the official site to update. But yeah, Charles Leclerc, fantastic. Alex Albon as well. I was really impressed with him today. He was quite... I mean, I was very disappointed with him yesterday. Long way off Max Verstappen. Not really delivering what he should have been, out qualified again by Pierre Gasly. But he was super racy today. And that early pit stop was another great strategy call from Red Bull, because he was able to just get out there on the hard tyres in some clear air, deliver some laps and get some undercuts. And he did some great overtaking. A couple of fantastic moves around the outside of drivers at Cops. This is the key with Alexander Albon. This is why there's, the big debate around Pierre Gasly and Alex Albon is, well, is he doing any more? Maybe the results aren't showing it, perhaps, but what I would say is that he is certainly making moves that Pierre Gasly was not making in that Red Bull. So, and Red Bull like an aggressive driver. So if he continues to do that, he'll be absolutely fine in that car. But that's a really good performance to get back to 5th place. Of course, still a long way, 39 seconds off his teammate, but he's in traffic as well and trying to fight his way through. But good recovery, all things considered. I still want to see more from him across a race weekend, I'm not going to lie. But why do I say I'm not going to lie? It just smacked me in the face there. Why do I say that? Like I'm going to sit here and BS you all afternoon. Oh, yeah, best driver on the grid by an absolute mile is Lance Stroll. No, I'm not. I'm always honest. That's part of my problem. But yeah, Alexander Albon, I'm really impressed with him. I think could be a contender for driver of the day. You probably won't get it because there have been some excellent performances out there, but I think he can be really, really happy with that. I'm going to just pop up the F1 page results. So I've got another idea of who to talk about. Lance Stroll, Nico Hülkenberg, Racing Point. Do you think they'll be disappointed with that chat? I expected more. I know we're talking perhaps a little bit too hyped up about the idea of Nico Hülkenberg getting a podium. I think we'd all kind of love to have seen that this weekend, especially if he's not going to be racing next week. Question marks over that one. We're looking. There was a point in the race where I really thought they pulled a great strategy because they pulled it into the pits, didn't they? And it looked like they were going for an undercut on Mercedes, which is, considering you've copied their car, quite audacious. I think that's brilliant. But yeah, I think they were doing very, very well in that race. They were consistent with their pace. They were consistently sort of 4th and 5th before Charles Leclerc managed to get through. Hulkenberg would have finished higher. I believe that had he not had to make that extra pit stop, just to confirm if you missed that at the start. According to Racing Point, there's nothing fishy going on. Hulkenberg complained of a vibrating tyre or vibrations, so they decided to pit him as a precaution. Didn't really manage to switch that soft tyre on quite as I expected. I thought he'd be able to catch Stroll, but he was 13 seconds behind him come the end of the race, so I wasn't quite able to catch him. But to be fair, the way the mediums were falling off and the hards were falling off, I'm surprised he got the softs as far as he did, quite frankly. It was only a handful of laps, but yeah, I think they'll be disappointed with that. And I'll tell you something. They need Sergio Perez back. I'll give it. You can probably guess what I'm going to say about Lance Stroll. He's a better driver than a lot of people seem to think he is. But he's not on the level of a Nico Hülkenberg. He's not on the level of a Sergio Perez. And they really need Checo back. They really, really do. So we'll see. I think that's a disappointing result for them. But at the same time, it's 6th and 7th place. So it's not all bad, is it? I mean, that's decent. It's a decent haul of points, especially everything going on. But the talk at the moment around Racing Point is whether or not they're running a legal car. Technically, they're not. They've been summoned to the stewards. I don't know if a decision's in, but I imagine it's a reprimand because they were running the same brake ducts as last weekend. So I think the big thing for Racing Point this weekend is that that's a good result. It's an okay result, but I think they'll come away from Silverstone really feeling like they've missed out on an opportunity because this is a Mercedes track. And that is, for all intents and purposes, last year's Mercedes. We know that. We're not stupid. We know that is a copy of last year's Mercedes. They're very open about that. That's not something they're hiding. So I expected more from this weekend. I think that's why it feels like a bit of a disappointing result. But there you go. We shall see how they get on. But Hulkenberg, I think he's done all right. I know 3rd place yesterday, excellent qualifying result. But I think in general, I think he's done very well, all things considered. I said it in yesterday's video, a week before he got the phone call, he was sat in a cafe having a pastry, and then he's lining up 3rd on the grid a couple of weeks later. So given that it was such a quick turnaround and the limited time he's had to get ready for these 2 races, I think he's done a really good job. He's done himself no harm at all. Apparently he's talking to teams and has been talking to teams for a while. I would imagine the likes of Haas and Alfa Romeo are 2 of the teams looking at him, especially with question marks over some of their drivers. So he could come back, and I think he's done himself the world of good with his performances. So there you go. And apparently it was a reprimand. Apparently, according to Max, yes, it was a reprimand, apparently. So there we go. I mean, we knew they were getting a reprimand, didn't we? We just need official confirmation. Did anyone else see Lawrence Stroll very quickly? I imagine most of you did. His big speech to camera, reading his auto cue, his statement. Not a happy guy, I think it's fair to say. And it looks as though he is willing to take this all the way. If he needs to take this all the way to the courts, he's taking it to the courts because he's pretty confident he can win. So if you didn't catch that, I will give you a very quick summary in 3 words. Basically what he said was, this is war. That is essentially what he said in a lot of words. So if you like your politics in Formula 1, get yourself ready. It's going to be a fascinating few weeks. There's no doubt about that one. But on track. Expected more from these first 2 Silverstone races. Maybe they were struggling with the temperatures as well. As we know, again, last year's Mercedes had problems in the heat. Maybe that's part of it. But Not an awful result, but I expected more, so we shall see. Esteban Ocon 8th place, he was thrilled with that one. Understandably, I think that's a good drive. Beating his teammate who had a spin, Daniel Ricciardo, was looking good after qualifying, wasn't he, to maybe be knocking on the doors of a podium. He was my one to watch, so no great surprise that he spun and finished down in 14th and struggled to a point. Really, I like to jinx the odd driver, so good result for Ocon. Closes the gap in the championship as well to his teammates. I think that's a win for him this weekend. I really, really do. I'm just going to go and check super quickly. Yes, the Constructors' Championship is wrong. It's just updated on the official page. I had a feeling... so what I'll do is I will remove that for now. So that is wrong. Ignore the Constructors' Championship if you've been watching it all the way through this going, wow, look at Racing Point. They're doing a hell of a job. They have 41 points. McLaren are in 5th place. McLaren are 4th on 53 and Ferrari are 3rd on 55. As I'm sure you can appreciate, I can't really change the graphic right now. Whilst we're live, so yeah. And Granny Annie there saying, buy yourself a large box of popcorn for the war. I think, damn right. It's gonna be really, really interesting to see where that one goes. But anyway, Ocon, like I say, seemed happy. Didn't see a huge amount of him. He's one of those drivers that's kind of got on with it today, which often tends to mean they've had a good performance because you've not had to really watch them too much. Some good driving all round really in that midfield. Some great battling. Lando Norris 9th place. I didn't catch his post-race interview, but he started 10th, finished 9th. It's a place better. I'd imagine McLaren are probably quite disappointed with their weekends because I thought they'd be a little bit quicker. Maybe it's a track-specific thing, like Renault looked much better this weekend, so maybe that's track-specific. Maybe things will change for the next race. But a couple of points, it's better than nothing for Lando Norris, beating Carlos Sainz, I believe, in the championship, P5 in the championship. Yeah, 38 points. That's a very good start to the season, isn't it, for Lando? 38 points, 5th in the championship, 69. Nice. Off the top of the championship table. So, yeah. Pretty pleased with that one. Again, another driver I didn't see a huge amount of. I think it was Sainz on the outside of Vettel when he spun, so I don't think he was involved in that one. But yeah, a lot of the focus in today's race, as you can understand, was towards the sharp end. So we've seen a lot of the midfield lately, and we saw a fair bit of it today in the broadcast, but certainly not as much as we've seen in recent weeks because there's been something to watch at the front. So there we go. I think, yeah, Daniel Kvyat, 10th place. I've talked about him already at the start, didn't I? I think that feels like quite an important result for Kvyat. I really, really do. Pierre Gasly's had a superb start to the season. I think he's been one of the drivers of the first few races, certainly in that midfield. So for Daniel Kvyat to beat him today, I think that's important. I really, really do. It's only a point, but it's a point more. You know, he's closed the gap a little bit on his teammates. So I think that's a decent result. But I thought Gasly was going to do better. 7th on the grid, falling down to P11. A little bit disappointed with him today. He was nice and racy at times, though, so that's good to see. But I think it was in the second stint. Might have been his first stint. I don't know if I wrote that one down on my lovely list of notes that I can't even flip and read. I need to learn to write. Rear left was pretty much finished after 20 laps. His hard tyres, so he really struggled with traction. That's probably what cost him quite a bit of time in the end. So, yeah, expected more though. But, you know, like I said, that's such a good start to the season. Does it matter if he has the odd off weekend? They're all going to have them. But, yeah, there you go. I'm just going to come to you in chat in a minute and get a few of your thoughts on this one. I talked a little bit about Seb. I'll talk about him towards the end of the stream, about his future and what it means going forward for him. Carlos Sainz, not good this weekend, if I'm being nice. I think he said he needs to go away and have a think and a refresh before Barcelona because he can't understand what's been going wrong lately. But it was a fair way off in qualifying, really, where you'd expect McLaren to be. Although I think only a place or two behind Norris after penalties for Ocon, so not terrible, but you expect a bit more from McLaren because they've had such a good start to the season. Like I say, maybe it is a track-specific thing, but not an epic race from him today down there in, P13. So, yeah, it's difficult when you get into this midfield because there's not really a lot to say about somebody who finishes 13th and you see nothing of. Daniel Ricciardo, I've talked about his spin, didn't cover himself in glory there, a little bit excited maybe, side by side with, who was he side by side with? There was a McLaren up his inside, wasn't there? And then he ended up in a spin. There wasn't contact or anything like that. But yeah, not epic from him. I'm disappointed with Ricciardo. I really thought he could have got a podium today if things had gone wrong. But the race pace just wasn't there, unfortunately. That said, Ocon did do well in the other... Yeah, it was Sainz. Thank you, guys. It was Sainz. Sainz-atage, says Adam. Why not? Alfa Romeo, if anybody's got any idea what's going on at Alfa Romeo other than the power unit, please do send me a letter, answers on a postcard. I could not tell you what is going on at Alfa Romeo. They are over one lap, probably the slowest at the moment on race pace. They are comfortably in that bottom three. Just nothing there. And I know the power unit is an issue for them, and Haas and Ferrari are not really performing how you'd expect with that power unit based on last year, so that's kind of why. But it's not just a power unit issue. There's no way that's just an engine issue. So I'm not sure. Maybe just... Was it last week I said it, or was it the week before, where I kind of said that, actually don't forget Alfa Romeo. They've got this really lovely name and a bit of investment, but they are essentially still Sauber. We love Sauber. They're an underdog team, but they've not got a massive budget. Probably better than they did have, but not a massive budget. So maybe just struggling. Perhaps maybe another team that need to be looking towards 2022 already. But I hope they can find some form, because I'd like to see Raikkonen go out with a bang. I suspect it's his last season, but I've been saying that since... Well, I've had the channel, so 3 years I've been saying I think it's Kimi Raikkonen's last season, but he's still racing, so why not? Haas fell away a little bit in the race. Grosjean down in 16th place, started 13th. That's about as exciting as I can get about Romain Grosjean. Not that I don't like him, just didn't really see much of him, which is a shame. I was so excited about what was going on sort of top end of the field, which was nice. George Russell, I think he had some problems with tyres, was struggling a little bit, had to make an extra pit stop, I believe. I don't know if it lists it on here. It does not. Of course it doesn't. But yeah, he made an extra pit stop. So let's have a look at that race results super quickly. Yeah, 3 stops. I think the idea was for 2. So an extra stop for him because of the tyres. Nicholas Latifi also stopped 3 times. But Russell, still beat his teammate despite the fact he was struggling on his tyres and had to make an extra stop. Not than his teammate, but than they were expecting. So I think pretty decent result all around for Williams. I know it's 18th and 19th, but they're definitely closer. There's definite steps forward. And we said it... Again, we said it last week, didn't we? This is the problem when you have back-to-back races at the same track. Aside from, obviously, what we saw with tyres, it doesn't often mix things up very much. But Williams have definitely taken a step forward. But we kind of came to the conclusion last week with a little bit of help from somebody in chat that, yeah, all right, they've taken a step forward, but Alfa Romeo and Haas have taken a step back and maybe are flattering them a little bit on a Saturday. But, yeah, still great strides forward for Williams. In the fight, whenever you see Haas and Alfa Romeo, the back end of the midfield... on the track, there's usually a Williams right behind them or in between them, so that's great to see. Worth mentioning Kevin Magnussen, DNF, either a mechanical issue or they just decided with his penalty they might as well retire and get a new gearbox for next weekend for free. But he did get a 5-second time penalty. I'm sure there'll be somebody who will say in chat they think it's not a penalty, but I will struggle to find many people that disagree with that decision. Ran off at Stowe, very, very wide, came back on track on the outside of Latifi and just, nearly wiped him out. Quite frankly, just came straight on track and Latifi has to effectively jump out the way to avoid a massive collision. So that's a penalty all day long. It's an unsafe return to the track. It was vintage Magnussen, and why we love him. Why not? So yeah, very much a slam dunk from the FIA. I don't think there's any real argument there. And I think that's a good point from his Explo Raw. I've probably butchered that. Said no bad intention, but deserved a penalty. I think just he's coming back on track, isn't he? And he's probably thinking, here, get out of my way. You can see me coming, move. But Latifi hasn't moved well out of the way to let him back on, which isn't Latifi's fault. He doesn't have to. But yeah, definitely a penalty there, no doubt whatsoever. What do you reckon for driver of the day then? Peeps? I said peeps. Why not? One surname in the chat. Who are you going for today? Official driver of the day was Max Verstappen. Nico Hülkenberg, I think, was second place. No great surprise there. I'm going to go... Brace yourself. It'll shock you. It'll shock you to your very core. I think I'm going to have to go with Verstappen. He managed his tyres brilliantly. His pace after that second stop, again, managing the tyres, but then when he needed to get his foot down, he absolutely nailed it. Great performance to take the win. Really rattled Mercedes today, which is what I think every neutral needed to see. Before anyone hops in the chat or in the comments, I'm not a Mercedes hater. We just need the likes of Red Bull to be doing this from time to time to keep them on their toes and give us something to get excited about away from Hamilton versus Bottas. So I'm going to go Verstappen, but if I had to pick somebody outside of the top 3, I'm going with the guy that finished 4th place, and that's Charles Leclerc. Superb, absolutely superb once again. There's 2 podiums he's had this season so far and a 4th place, and obviously a DNF after the contact with his teammate, but I don't think that's a terrible start to the season at all. for who Martin Brundle has christened as Charlie Boy. Yeah, it's novel, isn't it? Why not? I call Max Verstappen Maximus Verstappenus, so there you go. Hamilton is a pick there. I'm not going to try and read that name because I think that's a naughty word. Ash Cash says Leclerc. Sandesh says Max Verstappen for F1 Fan 89. Chris Downing says Verstappen. Carola says Verstappen as well. Daniel Philpott, Sean rolls eyes, says Roman Grosjean. I swear that's just F1/E Reviews, Dan, with a fake name coming to harass me with Grosjean. Howain says Verstappen. Let's try advice on another Verstappen. Nico for IT Pro Florida, or IT Pro Florida, IT Pro. Alan says Max. Mike says Hulkenberg. Riley says Verstappen. Leclerc for Matthew. Two-stop Leclerc is crazy, says Ash Cash 147. That's a good point. Leclerc pulled off the one-stopper, didn't he? It was only Ocon, Leclerc, and... Oh, the graphics there, brilliant. Raikkonen, who managed to pull off the one-stopper, which, given the way the tyres were falling away... What an achievement. I think I forgot to mention that, so apologies, Charles Leclerc fans. That's shocking. That definitely deserves a massive shout out. I think Ferrari were giving him a delta to keep to, and he did it brilliantly, so well done to him on that one, absolutely. Max says George. Let's scroll down a bit further. Anwar says Albon. I think Albon's going to be one of those that maybe people don't look at as driver of the day, but say that could have been, if it had been a comfortable Mercedes 1-2 and Leclerc had done all right to get fourth, maybe he'd have got it, but I think there was some better performances today for that one. Ocon is a good shout from a couple of people in chat. I think he did well to get 8th place. I wouldn't necessarily put him as driver of the day personally, but I do agree that he did a very, very good job. Hulkenberg for Uran, a lot of Verstappen love in there. Alex, Conical, Carl says Verstappen or Leclerc. Arthur says Max as well. And I think we'll leave it there because it's mostly Pink Wink says Lando. Can't get on board with that one, unfortunately. 9th place is okay in that McLaren, given it's not really been their weekend. But again, I kind of like Albon. Some people have done much better jobs, in my opinion. Verstappen, yeah, lots of people saying Verstappen, and I kind of agree with that one. Ricard says Leclerc as well. Perez says Matthew Peters. Oh, poor Sergio Perez. Bless him. Anyway, could be back for Barcelona. Could be back for Barcelona. We will see. We will see. I think that's let's not get into government guidelines. I can't be bothered. If the team struggle, I ain't got a clue. But yeah, we'll see. Hopefully see Checo back soon, though. The important thing with Sergio Perez is he's asymptomatic and he's generally fine. He's just got the virus, so they've got to play it very, very safe, obviously. But most important thing is he's okay. So best wishes to Checo once again. Let's have a look at some of your super chats. Thank you to all of those that are donating tonight. Really appreciate that one. Great for your company as well. It's been a while since I've done a race reaction on my own. It's not a while since I did a live stream. I did one Friday, didn't I? But always appreciate your company on these ones. Nice to just sit and talk nonsense about F1 without having to think too much. Not that I tend to think too much before recording videos, you might have noticed. Adam Winch, thank you for your contribution. Says, Binotto has blamed Seb for his strategy. I'm holding back some colourful language. Yeah, that's not going to end nice, is it? That's going to get messy. Martin Brundle or Paul Di Resta said messy divorce. We'll talk about Seb in a minute. I should have said that. We'll talk about him in a minute. Raza, Hulk, a seat for next season. Perez, Hulk and Haas. Oh, Perez and Hulk at Haas. I'd like that. That could be a good move for Haas to get 2 fresh drivers in 2021 before regulation changes. That's a good question. We'll answer that probably in a second. And Alex Waltman, thank you, or Voltman says, thank you very much for your super chat. He says, do you think Red Bull's win is due to the car being improved over the previous 4 races, or was this hotter weather just Benz's Achilles heel? Maybe both. I think the general... I mean, you all know I'm not Mr. Technical at all. Seems pretty obvious, doesn't it? I don't know why I'm even trying to think about an excuse for that one. I'm not. I'm just a gobby fan and love Formula One, especially after days like today. But I think there is a general consensus from those in the know that there has been some improvements at Red Bull, but I think it is mainly down to those hotter temperatures this weekend that have really seen them do very, very well indeed. So, yeah, I hope they've improved. They seem to have. And I hope that this is a start of me being proven wrong and it's not going to be Mercedes, Hamilton versus Bottas title cruise, and Verstappen can get himself in that mix. I think that'd be brilliant to come from behind last season. And actually, random thought just came to me. Somebody said to me, I did a video ages ago now, a few months back, about whether or not all this talk about how Austria was going to favour Red Bull and the start of the season favoured them and it gave them an advantage. Obviously, that immediately didn't age particularly well, did it? But somebody said to me in the comments in that video that the problem with Red Bull is they tend to start quite slowly and then they kind of get to grips with their car and understand it and develop it more and then come good. And we kind of saw that last year. Yeah, Verstappen had a good start to the season. Don't get me wrong. He wasn't 20th every weekend. But it took a few races before they were really challenging for wins consistently. And as soon as he did, and they gave him the car, he was doing that. And there was some talk as we approached the summer break last year that maybe, just maybe, he might be a bit of a title outsider. It was a big ask, but maybe he could. And we might be seeing the start of this now. I'm not saying they're going to go off and win next weekend and then win in Belgium and Italy and suddenly become massive title contenders. But, this could be the start of something. So hopefully they continue to improve that car. Obviously restricted this year with a lot of development, not just with the regulations, but I'd imagine also financially with the hit they're all going to take because of the drop in prize money, but also less time between races to do too much. So, but I think they're going to do all right. So I think it's a mix of both. I think you're right with that one. I just saw somebody, Sujit, saying, thank God for Verstappen and thank God for Charles Leclerc too. A few people saying thank God for Verstappen. Where would we be if we didn't have the likes of Verstappen and Leclerc giving us these big mix-ups? I still say credit to Mercedes for doing what they're doing. You can't criticise them. They are the best team out there. They're doing the best job and they've got the best drivers. So there you go. It's up to us to catch them up, and that's what Red Bull did this weekend. But just back to that thing on... Who was it who asked me that question about Ferrari? Adam Winch, that super chat that you put in. This divorce between Sebastian Vettel and Ferrari is going to be messy. It's going to be bitchy. It is going to be dominating that team this season. But I want to put this to you guys so you can just say yes or no. Sorry, Sam R in chat just saying no. Thank Jos for Max Verstappen. Very good. Yes or no in the chat. Wait for the question. Will Sebastian Vettel see out the season at Ferrari? I'm going to say yes. And like I said earlier, I wouldn't be surprised if he does leave. But it's getting a little bit messy. There are a few comments being made, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if he maybe ends up going the same way as Alain Prost. But I right now, my gut is telling me 90% he will absolutely be there. But as long as that 10% is there in my head, there's no doubt. And there you go, straight away, Morgan. Straight to my point. The big point. Even if they drop him, who replaces him? Antonio Giovinazzi? Is he going to do any better in that car than Sebastian Vettel? Probably not. Maybe Hülkenberg, but he seems to be Mr. Go-To reserve, it looks like, maybe. I mean, he could. He's done a pretty good weekend. They're not going to get Carlos Sainz out of his McLaren contract early because they're not going to want to buy him out of that one. And because if he goes, then Ricciardo's got to leave Renault and it's all an absolute mess. So I suppose that's a great question. Who's going to replace him? We'll see. Maybe they will make the call as a drop my pen. Maybe they will decide to get rid of him, but it could just be the fact the lack of options kind of stops them doing that. But I feel like Seb is kind of a proper professional, old school racing driver. I don't think he's going to walk, and I don't think Ferrari are going to sack him. So I think he will see out the season, but there is always that lingering doubt, isn't there? There's always that lingering doubt. A few people talking about the likes of Schwartzman and Eilert. I don't think they have the super license points, and I can't see Ferrari throwing one of them alongside Charles Leclerc. That'd be mad. But then, could you imagine if a Schwartzman or an Eilert, let's imagine they do have super license points, I don't know if they do, gets in that car and smashes what Sebastian Vettel was doing and is right on the back of Charles Leclerc? That could make the decision early, a bit tricky for them next year. Do you think it's unfair that Honda and other suppliers can't improve the PU for performance and have to deal with any deficit they have now? That's from, is that Vignesh? So thank you very much for your contribution. It depends what you mean by fair. I mean, it's fair in the sense that everyone's in the same boat. it's not fair that they're so... Well, is it fair? You know, they've had the time to develop this power unit. They could have done it last winter. But the thing is with Honda is they are a long way clear of where they once were. Let's not forget that. They've come a long way in a fairly short space of time, really, when you consider where they were with McLaren. So I actually think Honda are probably up there, possibly second best power unit, because Ferrari are nowhere. I don't believe Renault when they say they're as good as they are with their power unit. I never have. So I actually think that they're probably second best. So... they might be able to find some of that time with a decent Red Bull chassis, but I kind of, in terms of the term fair, sip of water. It's a bit warm today. It is because everyone's in the same boat. If you get what I'm saying, so I mean, we'll see. I think Honda they can make a change, can't they? Are they allowed one change, or is that just on the chassis? No, they can't. They can't, Sean. You know this. Somebody told us the other day. How do you rank the Renault PU? Third. No, they can't be third. Ugh. Are they better than Ferrari at the minute? That's a very good question. That is one for me to ponder. I will say just behind Ferrari for now, but I'm going to go off and research that. Thank you for that question, whoever that was. I've lost it now. But yeah. Better than Ferrari, do we reckon? Chat seem to think so. So there you go. Yes, absolutely. But yeah, I think Seb will see out the season at Ferrari, and we'll see how things go from there. But Aston Martin next year, I think we can all agree that's probably going to be where he's going, alongside Lance Stroll by the look of it. So that brings my other point, just back to that other question about Hülkenberg and Perez. If you've got a Perez, certainly, that becomes available, and you are Haas or Alfa Romeo, you need to go and get a driver like that. And I actually do think that Sergio Perez will be a perfect replacement for Kimi Raikkonen if he does decide to retire at the end of this year, as the rumours are saying he will. But if I'm in Haas's position, I'd consider both. But I'd probably only take one because of the financial, it's no disrespect to your Grosjeans and your Magnusons. They're going to be a little bit cheaper than your Hülkenbergs and your Perez lineup. So I'd fully expect to see maybe that's it. Maybe I've answered my own question there as I sit here waffling about driver transfers in a race reaction. We'll get back to the race in a minute for anyone that's like, come on, Sean, stop speculating. But maybe Perez or Hülkenberg replace Raikkonen and then the other one goes to Haas. Maybe something like that. So yeah. Just that's a bit of driver speculation. Any question about the race to round things off with a bit of Q&A, as we always do. Annie says, don't forget to drink. Thank you for your contribution again, Annie. And I've had a sip of lovely, lukewarm, above room temperature water. It wasn't tasty. So yeah, any questions about the race before I go, because I want to try and keep it as close to the race as we possibly can. Did Hamilton slow down in time for the pits at F1, Adam? Yes, and the reason I say yes so confidently is because if he hadn't, he would have got a penalty. Pit lane speed. If you're new to Formula One and you ever see on screen it say under investigation, Lewis Hamilton for pit lane speeding, there's not an investigation. The data has told them that they've sped, and it's a slam dunk penalty. I've never. And this is usually where somebody crops up later and goes, actually, I think you're fine 3 years ago. But I've never, or I can't remember ever seeing an investigation on a pit lane speeding incident that's been overturned in the race. So if he had sped, it would have been a penalty. It would have been absolutely a penalty. So I don't believe he did, but it was bloody close. He was sweating apparently 3 times on the radio. He asked the team, did I slow down in time? And they said A firm. So there you go. No speeding in the pit lane there. There's no big conspiracy with Formula One and Lewis Hamilton. Don't worry. Could Ricciardo have done more? Says Mario. Where was he before he spun? I can't remember. I don't know if I jotted it down in me sexy notes. Spun lap 31. He didn't have the race pace today. There's no doubt about that. But he was certainly in that fight, sort of where Ocon is now. So I think without the spin, I think he would have scored points. So I don't know if he could have done better, but I kind of wish he had. I was expecting more from him. Would have been nice. Pranav says, has Ocon been disappointing? Today, no. Generally this season, I don't think he's been bad. He gets hyped up a lot, Esteban Ocon, and every creator in some way, either one way or another, either on the playing him down or bigging him up, is guilty of that. But I think I was expecting more. but also we are only 5 races into this season. I know that is probably going to be about a third of the season, but it's a shortened season. So 5 races in, a year out. Daniel Ricciardo as a teammate, 4 points off him after 5 races. That's not terrible. Let's not forget that. It's not terrible. I know there have been incidents. Ricciardo today spinning, but Ocon didn't spin. So expected more. But I think that's because I also expected more from Renault. I've been saying it all season so far. I really do believe there is a bit more pace in that car, and for whatever reason, they can't unlock it because we see it in qualifying. We saw it yesterday with P5 for Ricciardo. So I think there's more there for Renault. And maybe once they've got that unlocked, Ocon will deliver. So we'll see. What tyres are next weekend? That is an excellent question from Julian. Should we go have a look at what Pirelli is saying? I can't actually remember. I think with it being Spain, it's going to be the hard options. For next weekend. I don't know if Pirelli is saying anything on that one. Nothing on their page. But I think it is. I'll just have a double check. I'll come to chat in a minute because somebody will know, because you lot are just brilliant with stuff like this. But I think it'll be the hardest options, I'd imagine. C1, C2, C3. Apparently, according to Twitter. So take that with a pinch of salt. But yeah, definitely, I think, yeah, same as last week, apparently. So C1, C2, C3. So if it is hot again next week, as it is predicted for Barcelona, especially in August, Spain in August will be warm, definitely, understatement, they should last longer than it did today. So there you go. I'd love to see the super, super, super soft tyres go, but that would just be bloody chaos, wouldn't it? So yeah, we shall see. There is I think a protest has gone in. Renault lodged a protest against both Racing Point cars for this race, but after Racing Point had already been reprimanded by the FIA, the protest has now been withdrawn. That's going to be a waste of time, isn't it? Every single weekend, protest. Oh, we reprimanded them. It doesn't matter. Oh, whatever. Why 4 pit stops for Hulk? That's from Kevin. I did briefly go over it earlier, but I do like a good waffle, so you might be new, as you might have just arrived to stream. Racing Point said on Twitter that Hulk had complained about some vibrations on his tyres, so they decided to pit him as a precaution. Makes sense, but yeah, or however many stops it was, we'll see. But I think we'll. Do you think maybe it depends on the temperatures, I guess, but maybe a 2-stop race next weekend? Have a feeling it's gonna be 1 stop, isn't it? And it should be a Mercedes track as well, but again, could be temperatures. Do you know what? Why not? In fact, I'm going to save that one. We'll do that one. Mr. Random Guy, old Silverstone is better than new Silverstone. Disagree, but I do want to see Bridge back because I love that corner so much. So if there was a way they could have incorporated that into the new circuit, that would have been fantastic. But yes, and a couple more questions before I go to that other one. Regarding the race, or a couple of comments at least. Bring back Hypersoft and Ultrasoft. Completely agree. I liked that one. Kind of wish F1 teams could just pick their allocation out of all 5 tyres in the range each weekend. It would really mix things up. That's a good idea from Morgan. I think possibly cost-wise might be a bit of a nightmare for Pirelli because they've got to manufacture those tyres, but it would be great for us as fans, wouldn't it? You know, imagine Red Bull had rocked up with the softest compounds this weekend, or Mercedes had gone, we'll be fine, it's Silverstone, it'll only rain. We'll go with the softest option, it'll be cool enough, and it would have been brilliant. That would have been good fun. And like fill in the blanks there, says the cost as well. Your thoughts on the virtual fans? That was interesting. I mean, look, I was sulking last weekend because I would have been at the British Grand Prix, obviously, if it was held on its original date this year, and I was really looking forward to going. And I think there was a real... Maybe it's because I wasn't there and I was looking forward to going, so maybe there's a bit of bias here, but it looked very weird seeing Silverstone without fans. So I think having the virtual fans there is massively cheesy, but it is such a weird year that I am totally on board with that. Why not? Let's have some cheese, something to giggle at. I think the Lando Norris fan covering himself in milk. I mean, what on earth was that? Why not? Have some fun. It's been such a crap year so far for so many reasons, so let's just enjoy those little moments of chaos. It's a way to get the fans involved, but I think we're all looking forward to seeing, hopefully, some fans in the grandstands towards the end of the year, although I will say, as a wide message to FOM, they're of course not watching, but just because fans are in grandstands and we're glad to see them back, it doesn't mean we want to watch them rather than the on-track action. That's what I will say on that one. One more question before I go to that other one, because I've got another question for you lot to throw your way. Is it possible Red Bull put their tyres even harder than minimum pressures to look after them more? No. Well, maybe. I mean, they might. I mean, Lewis Hamilton was questioning their pressures, wasn't he? They might have done something different, but I'm not. I don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah. Ash Cash says, I haven't missed the fans at all. The race is the same for me. Like I say, it's nice that the TV director doesn't have them to focus on quite so much. It's nice that we've been able to watch the cars on track and actually see Carlos Sainz. He's a racing driver, by the way. We saw nothing of him last year, so it was kind of cool. Kind of cool to see him back. But yeah, it's Samar says it's silly. It is a little bit silly, but it's a bit of fun and it's a way to get everybody engaged with the fans. So yeah, there you go. Let's have a look. So the question was, and it's disappeared, and now I can't find it. So apologies. You'll know who you are. I think I've already asked. I think I've answered one. It was something models. So apologies if I've missed your name. Driver of the weekend. So who was your driver of the weekend? Probably Nico Hülkenberg. Who was your driver of the weekend, chat, before I go? It'll be interesting to see what you think. It's a good question. And I think I want to say Hülkenberg for that lap in qualifying. That was absolutely something quite special. But Max Verstappen fourth and goes on and wins that race. It's kind of tough. I know there might be a bit of bias towards Nico Hülkenberg in this because we might not see him again this season. We might. Who knows what's going to happen. But I think he's in that mix. But I can't think of anybody else. I mean, Bottas's lap was pretty good yesterday in quali to beat Lewis Hamilton. But his race wasn't great. Mercedes fell away. But I can't think of anybody else who really smashed it. George Russell again getting into Q2. That was a special performance. Although, to be fair, that's now getting a bit predictable. Come on, George. God. It's almost expecting it every weekend now. Yeah, I'll go Hülkenberg. Just because of that lap in qualifying, all things considered. And I think he would have beaten Stroll today. He out-qualified him by 0.3 yesterday, and he would have beaten him today without that extra pit stop. I'm pretty sure on that one. So, yeah, I'm going to go Hülkenberg, but I think there's a little bit of... It's just nice to see him back for a couple of weekends. If he wasn't there, I'd probably have gone Verstappen. So, yeah, that's me. Officially on the fence, so congratulations, you managed to get that one out of me again. A lot of you agree with Nico Hülkenberg. I'll give a couple of shout outs. Bright Flare says Hülkenberg. Bottas for Enforcer Nebula. Carolus says Hülkenberg. The Clansman says Max. Hülkenberg for Novelty Robots. Drip Wizard says Hülkenberg. Richard Phillips Studio says Hülkenberg. Two more super quickly. Professional Moron. You can't have that title because that's me. That is Max Verstappen. And Niz Noob Sky says Charles Leclerc. But all in all, I've thoroughly enjoyed this weekend. The qualifying yesterday I thought was brilliant. As you could probably tell in the video yesterday, I was very excited about how well that went. So very, very happy with that result. But also, I think the race today... Even without the tyre issues, Hamilton and Bottas in the early stages, that first lap, they were very punchy. They were very much sort of, Hamilton was trying to get by. I think we would have seen a really good scrap without the tyre issues between the two Mercedes. So I think without those problems, we would still have seen a good Grand Prix. But because of those issues and because it brought other drivers into play and there was that uncertainty and there was the question marks over strategy, I think... It's just a little bit better than a good weekend. I think, yeah. If I'm giving that a rating out of 10, I'd probably go as high as a 7. I feel... Have you ever watched Come Dine With Me? Super random tangent, but they do my nutting on that when you watch them do their scoring at the end and they're like, oh, it's a perfect weekend. The food was exquisite. The hosting was fantastic. I've never met such a more wonderful person. Beautiful house, great food, and that's why I'm giving him a 6. That's how I feel about that race. I've just bigged it up on stream and then gone, yeah, it's just above average. No, I think about a 7 would be a pretty good one. Morgan says an 8. Yeah, could be an 8. I think it is just... there were people who think that we're all excited because Mercedes have been beaten and that's why, but it's not. It is just because it just threw up so much variety. We didn't know who was going to win that race. Was Hamilton going to go for a one-stopper? Could Bottas hold him off towards the end? Would Verstappen actually be able to take the fight to him? Did he have the pace? I really enjoyed that race. I really, really did. A lot of 7s and 8s in the chat. 7.5. Oh, come on. That's sitting on the fence. That's my job. You can't do that one. A few 8s as well. So yeah, unpredictability. That's the word I was after, Novelty Robot. I like that. Yes, definite unpredictability, but fantastic race, really. When you consider that last weekend, apart from, I mean, don't get me wrong, last weekend's race, the middle was okay. It was intriguing. It was good to see some of the fantastic fights in the midfield. But in terms of at the sharp end, nothing really happened past the first couple of laps, and then it all happened at the end. So I think the fact that you had all the midfield fighting again today and a great fight at the front, that kind of makes it a better race. So yeah, really happy with that one. But I think we're going to leave it there today. A little bit shorter than usual for a race reaction. In fact, I say a little bit, about 40 minutes shorter, because obviously it's just me today. So you've had to listen to me waffle for an hour. But it was nice to chat to you all today. It definitely was. I'm not really sure what's coming up this week. I've not planned anything yet. Is that 33 out of 44? Says Mario. Is that your score? That is ace. Alex says 5 out of 7. I like it. And yeah, sorry, I was just going to say that's a great point there. I was literally going to say goodbye then. But Carola, at least it means that Mercedes isn't unbeatable. That's exactly it. They're not completely invincible. We've seen a chink in that armour. That's what we've seen this weekend, and that's what's making it really exciting. The problem is, I am going, I promise. But the problem is, next weekend is Spain. Yay! A race I really struggle to get excited about every year. It's like Russia for me. And Paul Ricard, it's kind of like, it'll probably be all right, but we'll see. I'm not a big fan of the Circuit de Barcelona, or is it Circuit de Barcelona now? It's not the Circuit de Catalunya, is it anymore? It's Circuit de Barcelona, I think. Not a big fan of that one. Doesn't always throw out great racing. I think it's a track that could throw out some good racing if they didn't test there as well and have all that data they have. We have this argument every year, but yeah. We'll see. It could be good. Youssef says, can you mention me, please? There you go. I've mentioned you super quickly, but I'm going to round it off there. Good little waffle. Actually, weirdly, I say waffle. That's exactly what a reaction stream is supposed to be. Me reacting to the race and just having a chat with you lot and what do you think and all of that. So really enjoyed that. It's not a review for anyone who's new to the channel, by the way. It's not supposed to be a review. So if I've missed absolutely tons that happened, apologies. But this is just a reaction. That's why I tend to call it the reaction rather than a debrief or a review. But I will be back. I think I said on Twitter the other day, my schedule is pretty much, unless something major happens, Wednesday to Sunday. And then I can catch up with admin and stuff like that behind the scenes and have a day to chill. Bit of Fallout 76, do some concrete collecting. Yeet. Very exciting. I said yeet at 34. It's definitely time to go. The heat's getting to me. But yeah, so there might be something tomorrow or Tuesday, depending on news, but certainly something from Wednesday onwards. And of course, then we're gearing straight up for the Spanish Grand Prix. So hopefully a good one in Barcelona. It does throw up some good races. It's not always terrible, but don't get your hopes up too high. And actually, if you don't get your hopes up too high, it might be a brilliant race. So there you go. But anyway, don't forget, you can, of course, follow me over on social media. All of the links you need for that are in the description down below. Please do leave a like as well before you disappear. And don't forget to subscribe if you are new and are a fan of Formula One. Word, Sean, it's English. But as ever, thank you for watching, and hopefully I will catch you again in the next one. Bye-bye.